Well, thank you, John. I do thank you, and I thank everyone else. It's great to be back here for the 12th annual Winter Conference. It truly is. It's one of these occasions that has become very, very important in the life of our mission, and it's an occasion for people from all over the United States and the world to get together and come together and consider together what exactly God is doing with us at each chapter, and that's what we're here for today. We've come here for in the middle of, as you've heard from Doc and heard from John and you've heard from the internet, from a difficult season. It's been awkward and painful for the last 6 months or so. Nevertheless, even though we're on the other side of the Mississippi this time, which was a decision we knew would affect our attendance, but we thought it was time to go to the west a little, we've got quite a crowd, 700 so registered, and more than that last night in the opening worship service. And I'm very, very grateful to have this group gathered, this group of people, as we take a look together at the next chapters for all of us. While this may be a little bit smaller as a group gathered, I want you to hear that what we hope to do, as Doc referred to a minute ago, is to really listen carefully and to hear God speak to us in these next 3 days together, to hear what he wants to say, how he wants to lead, how he wants to direct us in our work and in this mission, to guide us, if you will. I don't have to tell you that this particular winter conference will be different by design. You've heard a little bit about this already. You've noticed from your packets already that it will be a slightly different feel and design because we have a slightly different task before us. In the past, we've just simply come together to celebrate, to gather, to listen, to pray, and to worship, to be built up and sent out in one way or another. That's what we want to do in our 3 days or so today, this particular winter conference. But we've got more than that we want to do. We have a huge responsibility as a group, a community of people, to really discern together, okay, Lord, what exactly would you like for us to do as we move forward? We want to listen to one another. We want to listen to the Lord in this process of conversation. I've always argued that he speaks to his people, through his people. He certainly will in our time here. He already has begun to do that, as you heard last night in our worship service. And I want to sort out the various hearts and feelings that we have going on within us right now in this difficult and painful time, because it is something of a difficult and painful time. The shape of the conference, as you've heard, will be different in that we will have a chance to, yes, workshops, yes, plenary speakers, yes, that kind of presentation, Bible studies. We've already gone through that. But we also wanted the shape to be one in which we are together and we listen together. So I've asked Tony Barron, who is the head of the president of the Leadership Institute, Servant Leadership Institute, to sort of be a moderator for us. He did this yesterday in our clergy convocation for 2.5 hours. He comes to us with enormous skill. He's an author. He's a seminary professor. He's got 2 different doctorates, one in psychology and one in theology. So he's a very gifted person. And I want us to go through a process this afternoon in which we can learn and listen and consider together, and Tony will moderate that for us, and I'm grateful for that. We also are different this year in that we're going to have something of a communique team pulled together. I've asked Archbishop Young if he would chair a team to write a communique, and then I've asked a bishop on the West Coast, Todd Hunter, if he would be willing to be on that team, and on the East Coast, T.J. Johnson, if he would be on the team. I've asked H. Miller, who is the executive director, has a certain perspective that would be important in the team, and of course, the director of communications, Cindy Brust. And they would all together listen, gather, collect, hear what comes out of this, and we would like to be able to present something by Saturday that says it seemed to us, as we listened to the Spirit, that it was good to the Holy Spirit and to us to do these things and to move forward in these ways. And so that will be a little bit different from any winter conference that we've done so far. Now, there is a reason for that, and the reason is that a lot of people are very interested in the Anglican mission in America right now. They want to know. They have heard. The things that God has done with us in these last 12 years are stunning. They are amazing. And a lot of people around the world are very, very interested and concerned about what exactly seems to be taking place in the larger family of the Anglican mission right now. And so part of what we want to do is respond to that desire to understand and issue a communique that would allow people to get a sense of this winter conference. Just last week, I was in Nairobi, Kenya, at the invitation of the Archbishop and Primate of Kenya, Archbishop Eliud Wabukala, and he is also the chair of the GAFCON primates. He called us up. He asked, Chuck, could you come over on short notice and have a meeting with us? We are very interested in what's going on. So Bishop John Miller and I last week flew to Kenya, and we sat down together with Archbishop Raji and Bishop Mbanda, 5 different observers that Archbishop Eliud had pulled together from Kenya and Nigeria, and we walked through carefully exactly what was happening, exactly as we understood what was taking place. We began a process, as John Rogers just referred to work on reconciliation, coming back together in the sense of friendship and support. And I can tell you that we made genuine headway in this conversation. And he's released a statement to that effect that is basically collects the 7-hour meeting that we had and says in effect that we have made a great start on reconciliation. We're simply going through a difficult chapter because it's a wildly different leadership in Rwanda right now, and they have not been exposed to what we've been up to in the way the previous leadership was, and there's just a time for trying to sort it out. I've often argued that in any relationship, whether friendships or whether dating or whether marriage or whether business, there is a process of sort of forming, storming, and norming. And you have to kind of go through that a little bit, and it's difficult. And I suspect that's at least a part of what's going on with us right now. We're going through a process that we're trying to sort out together what exactly our relationship needs to be and what our relationship is. The people that met there enormously affirmed our work in the Anglican mission. I was very grateful. A number of the people in Nairobi had been to winter conferences. They have seen with their eyes and experienced personally what God is doing with this remarkable Anglican mission. So they were extremely supportive. Their arms were not crossed, and they were not looking at us suspiciously. They were very supportive, and they simply wanted to help facilitate the best way forward. And that was a big part of the agenda of the meeting, was to design the best way forward given all the facts and all the dynamics that were in place. And so that was for us a very important meeting. It was a remarkable time together. Now, when we were there, we began to talk about the story here. And as John Rogers just mentioned, when we were consecrated in Singapore a dozen years ago and sent here, we really didn't have much of anything. We had a vision, we had a dream, and we had North America. And we didn't have any clergy, and we didn't have any parishes, and we didn't have any money, but we had a vision. And so we said, Lord, I think you thought this up, not me and John. I think it was you want this done, so let's jump in and see what we can do. And we have watched a truly remarkable thing take place in the last 12 years. In the last 12 years, God has allowed us to gather and collect a staggering amount of money. You know, money is muscle. And find the money to plant churches. I spent 25 years in the other club, and we didn't plant churches. Getting into the Anglican mission, I now have insight into why we didn't plant churches. It's very expensive. It takes a lot of money to launch young Turks and people out into the world, get the music teams together, get the clergy going, move out and do this type of thing. But I asked H. Miller to run the numbers for me. What would you say it's been? Just the amount of money that has left the mission center in the last 11 years has been $46 million. That's a lot of money, troops, that has been used, gathered, collected to do the work in the last 11, 12 years. That money came from several sources. The congregations came up with 19 million plus, and that's great. A handful of donors and supporters that I'm very grateful for and that have worked beyond understanding to support us have given us more than all the congregations combined. They've given us 20 million something for this important work. And then another group of donors just from around the mission have thrown in another 6 million and something. So the point is simply that I've always argued that money follows vision. There are a lot of people that have gotten the vision of evangelism through church planting in North America and have come to the table and written the checks to see if we can help that happen. And I'm very, very grateful because that has also produced 268 churches in various stages of development. Now, that's a lot to look back and say, Lord, you are faithful. You did want this to happen, and you pay for what you order, and we have watched you do this. So back to Nairobi, they know this. They heard this, and they were so excited about this as a group of senior leaders of the church in Nigeria, in Kenya, and other parts of the world that know that God has done a truly exciting and remarkable thing in this Anglican mission. And so if there's tension or there's a friction or there's something painful that's presently going on, they wanted to be there and they wanted to help us. And I have to say, in spite of all the money that's been raised and all of the churches that have been planted, we are presently in something of a very painful tear. And this tear is what you've read so much about and is what is so troubling for so many of us. Nevertheless, I have come here, we've all come here with a sense of not just concern, which is there, but we've also come with a sense of expectation, which is always in my heartbeat. I expect God to do mighty things. I expect God to be present in this conference. And I expect God to speak to his people through his people. I expect God to help us to move forward and to get that hope and that future that he has purposed to give us. And he will do that in this conference and beyond this conference. He will speak to us in concrete ways. And the Communicate team will gather and collect that voice and that sense and that word for not just this conference, but for those who are very interested in the Anglican mission and what's going on. I wanted to say something on a very personal note about this because for whatever reasons, those of you that have access to the internet and the blogs probably have glimpsed a little bit that I have been chopped up royally in recent months. And I just want to say, I acknowledge this and I want you to know it. This has been a very painful experience for me and for my family and for my children. It has been one of these kind of wow moments. I just cannot believe the vitriol that has been voiced in the blogs and in the internet. It's just staggering, stunning to me. But it's there, and there's not a whole lot that I can do about it. In some ways, I've read the materials, and my kids have read it. It looks like, gosh, Dad, you just come across as a monster, this type of thing. And I know it. I understand it. Now, I knew and remembered that the Singapore consecrations were not particularly well received. No offense, John, but before I had come back, I'd been kicked out of the Episcopal Church before I got back from Singapore, and so I knew that it went downhill from there. So so I've been in awkward moments before, but this last season, last 5 months or so, has had a depth to it and a fierce, sort of strong, negative impact that it's taken me back even.